And now it's time for another edition of What Would Jello Do? So, Kyle Rittenhouse walks. That bratty little Nazi boy walks. He fucking walked. Self-defense. I didn't do anything wrong. Even though it's all on video for all to see that he murdered 2 people and tried to murder a 3rd and, didn't exactly hide any of it. And it's also obvious from the other evidence, he went there hoping to be able to shoot somebody. Finally, he'd have an excuse to shoot somebody and get away with it. The same reason people like Derek Chauvin joined police departments. But he couldn't wait that long. He had to do it right away. Do a little coon hunting, as they call it. And his mother even drove him there. Be a good little Nazi, Kyle. Make sure you kill some hippies. Better yet, maybe you can kill some black people and get away with it. Because he already had connections with bigger neo-Nazis. And now, here he is strutting around on Tucker Carlson, hanging out with Donald Trump, who called him a nice young boy, being gifted with a brand new AR-15 automatic machine gun rifle, which he's still too young to own or possess, from none other than Donald Trump C. Jr., when he should be locked up just like Dylan Roof is locked up. Just like the guy who mowed down Heather Heyer in Charlottesville and killed all those other people is locked up. This is where he belongs. How did Jim Crow 2.0 get this far, this fast? Remember these guys? This is where we're at now. The coup is just getting started. It's snowballing. And now, open carry laws, you can just run amok, you got your gun. Perfect shitstorm. You ain't seen nothing yet. Because, meanwhile, the PC crowd is going on and on about trigger warnings, microaggressions. They can use that too. Oh, I felt a microaggression. I had to kill that person. I saw a Black Lives Matter sign. I felt threatened because I hate black people. I had to kill them too. Open season. Now fine for that mentally ill person to hop a fence, sneak backstage, and gun down Dimebag Darrell because he thought he broke up Pantera. Who's next now? Do I ever do another live show again because the Nazi punks fuck off? That resulted in some harm way back in the day too. And speaking of Charlottesville, the Heather Heyer murder, running down protesters in your car for whatever you feel like it, well, who's going to stop them now? It's legal in Florida, legal in Texas, where Governor Abattoir is saying, no, I was first. I was the first one for that. Who's going to stop them now? Brett Kavanaugh? Amy I Can't Bear It? John Roberts? Clarence Peeping Thomas? No. All they have to do is inconvenience your shopping day. Mow them down. That's why they're passing all these governors trying to out-Nazi each other in Arizona and Texas and Florida and Georgia. All of that is because Barrett got on the Supreme Court. Now they want to see how much they can get away with destroying not just reproductive rights, but all our rights. What about our right to not get shot by these people? Boston Globe reports that not just the guy who murdered Heather Heyer intentionally has hit protesters lately. Between May 1920 and September 21, 139 drivers have hit protesters with their cars, killing not 1 but 3, injuring over 100, only 65 of them, less than half, even charged, only 4 got felony convictions. How long till President MAGA Monster pardons the next President MAGA Monster, pardons Mark Chapman? Oh, John Lennon said the Beatles are bigger than Christ. That's an aggression. I didn't get a trigger warning. That's a microaggression. Bang! Self-defense. I did nothing wrong. And isn't it time in that spirit he pardoned or patted on the head that poor misunderstood martyr of theirs, Timothy McVeigh? He was triggered by the people who died in Waco. He was innocent. He did nothing wrong. And yeah, I'm doubly surprised in that spirit that the lynch mob that murdered Ahmaud Arbery were actually convicted. So fine, take a few little dance around the room for that one. I wasn't about to come out with this until I knew the results of that case. But will the judge reduce their sentence? Can he under Georgia law? What happens when they appeal to that very same Supreme Court? Charlottesville, too. A judge can reduce damages in cases like that, and they often do. And even if he doesn't, and they still lose their appeals, well, Kyle Rittenhouse got $2 million almost overnight just to make bail through crowdfunding. You know the dark web of Nazi money would be more than happy to just pay those people's whole bill so they can go on and do more Charlottesvilles, and now that it's legal, kill more protesters with their guns and their cars. Trouble with the Arbery lynchers was they didn't have the best defense money could buy. They didn't have millions of dollars like Kyle Rottenhole did. Kyle Rottenhole had so much money even after the bail money that they were able to hire people, enough of a cast to stage not one but 2 mock trials, which is a pretty big expensive deal before they went to the real trial. They tried one with him testifying and one without and chose to have him testify. But the guys in Georgia too, oh, we were just out coon hunting. They always do that around here. Sorry, McMichaels, you just put out too much of that good old boy deliverance vibe in your mugshots. Who needs you when we have our own Justin Bieber? No, our own Elvis. While the Georgia prosecutor who won, Linda Dunikoski, said, when you present the truth to people and they can see it, they will do the right thing. I don't think there's any argument that near all-white jury in Kenosha, Wisconsin at the Rottenhole trial was not allowed to see the truth and derailed from seeing right was in front of their nose at every opportunity by that openly, maniacally biased judge, Bruce Schroeder. The worst judge I can think of since Julius Hoffman at the Chicago 7 riot conspiracy trial. He was an open fanboy the whole time, openly rigged the whole trial right before everybody's eyes, including the prosecutors. You can't call the murder victims victims, but you can call them looters. You can call them arsonists, but you can't say naughty things like that about Kyle Rittenhouse. And at one point, he even threatened to declare a mistrial and dismiss the case with prejudice, meaning you can't have another trial because he didn't like the defense or the prosecutors trying to actually prosecute when they did. He even dismissed the charge of illegally possessing that gun at his age and bringing it across state lines because he knew that they couldn't let him off on that. And he wanted to get him completely off, obviously. They let Rottenhole out on $2 million bail, crowd-funded, and there he is hanging out in a bar across the state line again in Wisconsin with Proud Boys. And who drove him up there to hang out with him too? His mother. Yeah, why hasn't she been charged yet? And when Rottenhole violated bail, of course, Judge Schroeder did nothing. He also disallowed an August 20th video of Rottenhole sitting in a car outside of Walgreens, calling the people leaving the store looters, saying he wished he had a gun so he could shoot them. Same for another shot or some kind of proof, January 1920, there he is already hanging out with the Proud Boys. Judge Schroeder seated the jury, just waved them all through in a day, decided who he wanted, kicked out the rest, and demanding ovations from the courtroom gallery when any defense witness who was a veteran testified. He didn't check on the prosecution witnesses. What does this say, not just about that court, but about the town of Kenosha and the way these cops behaved? Talk about a police department that ought to be defunded. Kyle, you see this on tape too. I tell him, hey, I just shot somebody. Oh, on your way, good young man. You better go home now. They didn't even check to see if anybody who was wounded needed an ambulance. And let's not forget that Rustin Shesky, the cop who shot Jacob Blake, 7 times in the back, in Kenosha that caused all this, well, he wasn't even disciplined at all by the police department. Nothing. And Merrick Garland didn't even try for federal civil rights charges either. What kind of a town is this place anyway? Is it Selma, Alabama in the 1960s? Is it the 2000 Maniacs movie come to life yet again? Is it Bakersfield, California right now? Judge Schroeder, 75 years old, longest serving judge in Wisconsin, appointed 1983 by a Democrat, and he often runs unopposed. What does that say about Kenosha, Wisconsin? And why did they let this judge wind up getting this case in the first place? Where were the prosecutors? Why not at least appeal, why not at least appeal that order? Oh, you can't call them victims. You have to call, but it's okay to call them looters. That should have been appealed right then and there. Stop the trial. They haven't seated a jury yet anyway, and let's get rid of this stuff. I hate to say it, but I really have to wonder, in light of how little they fought, how crazy this judge really is, kind of chummy, they'd known him for years, whether the Rottenhole prosecutors intentionally threw the case. It wouldn't be the first time. We know it well around here in the San Francisco Bay Area. There were allegations as soon as the verdict on Dan White came down, the assassin of Harvey Milk and Mayor George Moscone, who slipped in the one window in City Hall he knew was open to get around the metal detector. Gee, I wonder who arranged that from the inside. Gunned them both down. This guy was a cold-blooded assassin. Maybe we could call him a terrorist now. He got 3 to 5 for manslaughter because he ate too many Twinkies. He didn't even have to cry on the stand or anything. I mean, the allegations from that point onward were that prosecutor Joe Freitas, the DA who insisted on trying the case himself, even though he wasn't an experienced prosecution trial lawyer, he had to do it himself. Maybe he was that scared of the San Francisco police, many people are, and what they could do to him or his family. Or the other theory was he was threatened that they would defend Dan White by saying he was driven crazy with all the knowledge he had of Mayor Moscone and other supervisors, whoever, and how deeply tied up with Jim Jones they were. Well, that's what happened there. It's happened before. Greensboro, 1979, North Carolina. Handful of people march against the Klan. The real Klan and some Nazis show up in a bunch of trucks, kill 5 of them, wound more, and they got acquitted both federally and locally on the grounds of self-defense. Or, it's not a civil rights violation because this was political, not racial. Stuff like that. Only going after Timothy McVeigh and the Nichols brothers for blowing up the building in Oklahoma City. Well, why didn't they go after the whole militia movement who helped spawn them, trained them, inspired them, created them? I mean, McVeigh was a member of the Michigan militia for quite some time before he supposedly was thrown out for being too out of control and drunk and stuff. But nevertheless, there's more to that beneath. But who chose not to go any further than the bombers? A federal prosecutor named Merrick Garland. Yeah. Can we at least have federal civil rights charges on what happened with Rottenhole? Or the state of Illinois go after him for possessing those guns and bring it across state lines? It didn't happen. That was dismissed in Wisconsin. That is still on the books. And don't just sue Rittenhouse for wrongful death. He's underage. Sue his mom. And more to the point, sue all them Proud Boys and others he was hanging out with and working with clear back in January 2020 and before. It's not as though this hasn't happened before. There was a lynching in Mobile, I believe, Alabama years ago. And on behalf of the guy's mother, the Southern Poverty Law Center, who has no shortage of an endowment fund, sued the local KKK, connected it to them, won, and wiped them out, bankrupted. The mother got the key to their building and stuff. Same with racial attacks, and I'm not sure anybody died around Coeur d'Alene and Sandpoint, Ohio, and all, Idaho, somewhere in there, and they wound up putting the Aryan nations out of business. This is what's going on now. This is Jim Crow before and the attitude now. These are the guys, and this was their attitude when they and them other guys were on trial for the Mississippi murders. You know, the 3 civil rights people who came down and disappeared for a couple months till they were found in a landfill dam on another one of these people's property, and they later found 7 other bodies. 2 other civil rights activists, 5 African Americans who they never even bothered to identify. Yeah, we know we're going to get off. We're good old boys. One of them, and yeah, it's a sheriff guy, Sheriff Rainey. He was also the head of the Ku Klux Klan. And there was real grumbling when Mississippi murders came out that they made the FBI the heroes when in fact the FBI were doing more to try and protect them. Thus with the allegation and with J. Edgar Hoover in charge, I sure wouldn't be surprised. This is now what we are up against. This is now why a lot of people may not be able to vote or be caught drinking water while voting, or run them over in their monster trucks, what have you. But the only slightly silver lining, although I don't think everybody arming themselves to go back at these guys is going to make the violence go away. But the next time Kyle Rottenhole goes walking through a Black Lives Matter protest, an anti-Trump, anti-police protest, and starts pointing that brand new machine gun that Donald Trump Jr. gave him at anybody, under the ruling in his own trial, the people he points it at have the right to shoot and kill his ass first. Is that really what we want to come down to? Is this really the best we can do?